Welcome to another episode of Tecman Talks Dynamics. Today we are background talking Wave 2 2024 for CRM and the Power Platform. So with me this morning I've got John and I've got Kelly, both CRM and Power Platform consultants who are going to enlighten us about what's coming next. I think the only thing I'll caveat at the start, again with CRM and Power Platform, whilst it runs the same as Business Central, the release comes out in October, features start to find their way available to us. They can take all the way until March to actually get into our environments and be available. And even then, on some of the release notes that we have, some have been released with public preview notes and not yet general availability. So that's the only thing that we always have to bear in mind with CRM and Power Platform. Maybe compared to Business Central, where you tend to get a lot of the functionality quite early on in that kind of release, of that bi-yearly release. So where shall we start? Sales, customer service, who wants to, sales? Right, who wants to, obviously I've got some notes, but who wants to go first about anything sales orientated?
I guess one of the things that I saw recently was the change from conversation intelligence. Obviously we've seen that a couple of times.
Yeah.
It's as if that's being rebranded as, I think they called it, custom objections. So it looks like a bit of a changed version, but most of the features are there. It's that idea of recording sentiment, having the conversation. It just seems like because I'm not really too sure how well conversation intelligence was received. I mean, we've certainly seen instances of it, but it was not widely taken up.
I think the thing with conversation intelligence, it was always part of kind of the sales accelerator aspects of functionality. And obviously with conversation intelligence, you get so many minutes or hours that you get as part of your enterprise license. Can't get it at sales professional, or you've got to then go up to sales premium, and you sit there going, you're not probably going to go to sales premium just to get more minutes. It's not worth the extra license fee just for that alone. But I think conversation intelligence, I think when it comes to this whole world of AI and Copilot, which I'm sure we're going to talk about many times this morning, is that the reality is that if it's starting to listen and understand and pick out key information and give you guidance, then I think from my point of view, I think it's one that customers should be looking at more moving forward. But it doesn't surprise you that it's Microsoft have give it a bit of a name change. Again.
No, I mean when we first saw it, it seemed like it was so far advanced in terms of what it was doing. Yeah. But now when you look at what Copilot's doing, it's sort of thing. Yeah, well, it should be able to do that.
Yeah.
So it's perhaps bringing it back down to, or rather, the bar for where things are has gone up, and it's pulled it into that area.
I think it's a case of now you're seeing other areas give a level of more intelligence and information and in your face of what's going on. It kind of makes it easier to consume and just do conversational intelligence, as what it was called, opposed to just do that on its own. Yeah. So, okay, that's one, and I think that's one that customers should definitely look at more. Evaluating, literally, it is taking a conversation that you have had with a customer and doing analysis on it to then come out with kind of next actions and steps ultimately. The one from me, just because it's Copilot and you've started the Copilot bingo already.
We won't stop if we continue.
So I need my little bingo pad, but only in preview. No actual date that's been general release announced yet. But we've started to see that you can have on your sales app, your Sales Hub app, you can have your Copilot. So post get your dashboard when you load the system, you get Copilot. And you get there what do you want to ask. You get a couple of buttons going, summarise my opportunities, summarise my account, summarise my meeting, whatever it is. Relatively a few basic, and then you can ask it questions. But as with Copilot, it's got to be structured of how you ask it. It seems like they're creating a improved version of that already called the immersive homepage, where this immersive homepage is going to not just give you the buttons to click on and ask the questions, it's going to give you a bit more visualization of what's going on as a starting point as well. So again, it feels like that's probably a bit more user-friendly to the sales managers, the salespeople, etc. from that point of view, than just clicking a button and saying, give me a summary of something that's going on.
Yeah. No, that was an interesting one that I saw, the immersive homepage. Some people call it Copilot homepage, some people immersive Copilot. So I don't know if the title's still up in the air or if people are I'm just looking at different videos from different times.
The new front screen.
Yeah, let's go with that.
You mean they're changing names of things already? No, that would never happen.
But no, it does seem like it's a replacement for dashboards, doesn't it? And actually, it was our conversation that we were having, that there's certain features which have been there as long as I can remember, going back to CRM 2011, where I always say to customers, that's what it is. They're not going to change it. It's there. They're changing it. So it looks like they're adding more to it, which is going to be good. But that idea of the query, I did like that. We've had a little play with that with some customer systems, and if you get the phrase right, it's very, very good.
Yeah, I think that's the whole concept of Copilot. If you get the phrase right, if you word it right. Obviously, at this moment in time, it only looks at certain tables and certain fields, or a certain number of fields. So again, still a limitation of it. Okay. Anything else sales orientated, Kel? Anything that you want to pick out on sales that we haven't already discussed?
Yeah, so the ability to create more than one opportunity is obviously useful if you're the kind of organisation that, does various different things, has loads of different departments that might interact with different people at an organisation.
I suppose it's one of those where the inquiry comes in and there's multiple facets to what they're asking for. And the idea is, if someone's asking for a service contract and someone's asking for also a new set of products, and they've asked it on two aspects, going, I've got a contract that's due for renewal, but also I'm also interested in, well, you can then split that off into potentially two different opportunities from there. How often that happens, I don't know. I guess from our customer base, I don't think it happens a lot as it stands right now. But sometimes if you are getting a web inquiry or an inquiry from omnichannel or chat or phone call, and there's multiple aspects of what they're asking for, and depends on how you manage your pipeline, that could end up being quite useful.
Yeah, it's going to be very specific, isn't it, to organisations as to whether they need it or not. But
yes,
it's always nice to have the option than not to.
Move on to customer service.
Yeah.
Anything else that anybody wants to pick out? The one that I'm going to pick out, we're not going to talk about lots of, is just, it's not really a Wave 2, but it's a July 2024 release. Contact Centre. So Contact Centre is like an amalgamation of customer service and omnichannel together, and an improved kind of layout and setup. They're trying to, you are a contact type centre, or you are dealing with a lot of queries and issues coming in, and how do I have that better experience? So I guess it's an evolution of the customer service workspace, is how I would see it as it stands right now. But there's already new features and improvements and AI. Basically, Contact Centre is an AI-driven, Copilot-driven customer service desk, is the best way of describing it. Well, that's how Microsoft's marketing team are describing it. But yeah, that's something that I think we're going to evolve on discussion with a little bit. Cal, I think you had a couple about kind of prioritising cases and grids and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, so they've changed a couple of things in customer service, actually. They've been talking about and introducing for ages what's called a Power Apps grid, which is, it's basically a control on a view. So we used to have read-only grids, we've now got Power Apps grids. So one of the evolutions of this is that by default in the customer service workspace, in preview, you can now enable the Power Apps grid, and you can use it to prioritise caseload. So you can use it to colour code and filter on things like the next SLA. So the ones that's going to expire first, so that you can prioritise those cases. You can use it to colour code things.
Okay, so it feels like this is also, so from a system view and a list perspective, a bit more flexibility on kind of the it's in your face, this is what's next, this is where you should be focusing your time, colour coding, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously, we had a little bit of that. Obviously, we've got some customers that use field service. Field service have had that in their works order list for a little while.
Yeah.
So it feels like being able to bring something, that similarity of concept into kind of customer service cases.
Yeah, so they're using customer service and the case priority list as a good example of what that Power Apps grid can do, but they're actually rolling the Power Apps grid generally throughout the system anyway, so you can use it in sales and all different areas of the business as well. But the reason that the grid is so useful in customer service and cases is because the next SLA field is actually like a little JSON packet underneath that you can't read as a user, but it's using a control that basically passes through that JSON, using technical terms, but basically reads that JSON for you and puts it into a format that makes the view
create space for
user friendly,
a visual piece of text or characters that actually shows it to you that the user understands.
Yeah, so the customer service workspace is a good showcase for what that grid control can do.
And has that changed any of the editor functionality in that grid, or is it literally still just based on read only kind of list and visualization and changing colours?
So at the moment, it looks like you can do largely what you can do with the read-only grid.
Yeah.
Add columns, remove columns, filter on columns, things like that.
Yeah.
As you say, it's in preview at the moment, so we haven't really had a good play with it.
Okay.
But we'll see what it can do. But there's only so much you can do with a view, really.
I suppose where the bit of that was coming from, probably more on the sales side, where you've had like the Kanban principle.
Yeah.
Which the Kanban principle is, it's okay, but it's quite basic. But the dragging and dropping between the different stages and a bit more. And I guess the ability to maybe, it's hard going, some people go, well, can I just add a note, or can I just update something? Can I just change that status to so-and-so without having to go into the full record? But I guess that's where now, if you look on a leads and an opportunity side, it's not so much having the list view to do it, it's having like your kind of pane, which is your preview pane, to go through to see the record, but then you've got your list on the left-hand side, and then you're kind of working through both at the same time.
Yeah, so I don't know if you're going to be able to use the list pane that we're getting used to using in sales now, where you just have your list of leads and then you click it and it opens the form in context. I don't know if you're going to be able to use the Power Apps grid in that context. At the moment, it is just the read-only view that you're getting in that pane. So we'll have to wait and see.
Okay.
So the other thing that they've added into service as well is something that our support desk are going to be very happy about. They've added the ability to easily add attachments to a case. So at the moment, if you want to go and add an attachment to a case, you've got to create a note, you've got to add the attachment to the note, and then it sits there in the timeline. So
or do it via documents.
Or do it via
documents, files, etc. as well.
Yeah. So obviously uploading it into SharePoint.
Yeah.
But what they've introduced now is actually an attachments tab on the enhanced case form, and you can literally just go into it, click add attachments, and just select all the files that you want. I didn't try dragging and dropping, but that may also work. But so it's just a lot more native functionality of adding attachments there, how people are used to doing it, as opposed to having to go and create notes and it being a right.
Okay.
Obviously the downside to that is that does go into your file storage in your database, but then it kind of takes away. Again, we'll have to see how it interacts with the portals, because I know that they've changed the file functionality on portals as well, which I'm sure we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
But don't know how that's going to interact with portals and in terms of getting those files out to the customer.
Yep.
Via the portal when the login support call's there. So again, we're going to have to wait and see, because it's still in preview, so we're going to have a play with it. But could make a big difference to the speed in which people can attach files to cases.
Okay, cool. Anything from you, John, on customer service?
A lot of the ones I've got can apply to all branches, but as Kelly mentioned, the SharePoint, there was one feature in terms of the how Copilot can search for data. It's now able to look at documents that sit within SharePoint. So if you're doing a search for something, you ask it a question, tell me who's done whatever you want to do. Not only is it looking at those records, it's also now looking at the documents that sit within a particular records
So it's looking at
SharePoint
the
folder.
site that then
Yes.
CRM is essentially associated with, and then the folders and the okay.
So I found that to be a very interesting one, because it's again, it's one of those areas.
Sign contracts, for example, could be an interesting
Well,
one.
yeah. There's so many different things it could be. As I say, a lot of the ones I've got here are very much across the board in terms of what's there. So another one that was interesting, because it may have a customer service element, may have a sales element. It was the ability to actually use OneNote. And it seems to be something that I can't speak for myself, but it sort of dropped out of favour a bit. People just make notes somewhere else.
I'm a OneNote lover, I am.
But there's just going into today, I have a little play with it. When you've actually done a section in there, a note, you've now got the Copilot options that you can summarise it, and it will give you a little summary, and you can generate a to-do list from it. Now, previously, you might have had to have taken that and pasted it into a note within CRM.
Yeah.
Apparently, one of the features that's coming is you can now do it directly from OneNote and put it into your CRM record. So if you've got a meeting with somebody, we'll say a customer service element, you've got an account review or something, you can have those, and you can just send the note directly to CRM.
So there's actually going to be a use for that integrate with OneNote button.
Which has been there, which has been there for years,
Yeah.
years, and you've just gone, no one's ever used that feature. Even though I use OneNote regularly, I've never used that feature. So, okay.
No, I don't think I've ever turned it on, but we might have to start now.
Okay. So, I'm going to pick, I don't know if you both have looked at anything on customer insights, but AKA marketing. So, Copilot, bingo.
Yep.
The describe a journey in Copilot, and it creates the journey for you. That is now, they've been talking about it for a while, but that is now coming, and that's in wave 2. I naively thought Microsoft had made this available because they've talked about it for a long time, but it's actually not available until Feb 2025. But the whole prevent duplicate to shared email addresses. So
What's that in English?
what's that in English? So if you are marketing to an organisation and the marketing emails go to us three, but we all share sales@tecman.co.uk. The reality is by default, that email address would get 3 different emails to Kelly, to John, to Jason. Now, the tool is going to go, I'm clever enough to know that I don't need to send 3 of the same email to John, to Kelly, to Jason. So it's only going to send it once. So, again, how do they manage that going? Which contact do they put on their hi so-and-so? Up for debate or discussion, I guess, on that one. But the idea is, opposed to sending the same multiple times, then that, for me, that's a good efficient feature, because there are so many organisations that people share mailboxes. And the one for me that I'm going to get a little bit hurrah around is the new event portal. So, marketing, Dynamics 365 Marketing, has had an event portal since almost day dot when it was launched. It was in Angular, and I'll be pretty brutally honest, it was crap.
Yep.
Microsoft, if you're listening, it wasn't very good. And from my perspective, it was difficult to customize. It didn't flow seamlessly back with the marketing tool, and it just simply wasn't very well adopted. Microsoft, I've heard that multiple others have gone and just created other Power Portals, Power Pages, and just gone and created their own data links into kind of events and other pieces of the marketing tool. Now, Microsoft are actually on the principle of Power Pages, but also better integration that if you want to put it onto your own website, a proper portal-based tool. And that's coming out for preview in October. Now, I've got one customer in particular that burns in my brain a little bit that we need to do this for. It will also be beneficial for us at Tecman with the amount of events that we run as well. It's been a long time coming. If it's based on the principle of Power Pages and it's aligned, it's a hurrah moment from Microsoft to say it's about time that you got your technologies aligned, and building lots of Power Pages and portals in Power Pages technology and Bootstrap and CSS, and then having a marketing portal that's in something completely different that I'll sit there and go out on a whim and go, not very many people like it. So we don't, and it's been difficult. So that's a big thing for me, going a new event portal in marketing that's going to be hopefully a lot better, because it couldn't be much worse.
No, it couldn't.
Anyway, on to keeping on the positive track then. Anything from Power Apps, Power Platform, pieces. Don't have to be fair, should we jump right into Power Pages?
If you want to.
Bigger files, you've mentioned it.
Yep.
So one of the biggest challenges around Power Pages and portals is the ability for customers or suppliers or external people to be able to upload files of a sensible size.
Yep.
Not asking for anything, not asking for the world, but just being able to upload a gig file or a Word document, a PDF, a set of images, etc. That if you're using it for a support portal or an engineer portal, or you're using it for a case and an issue, etc., and you want to record a bit of a Camtasia video and send it across. Historically, unless you've got something that's kilobytes, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but I think it's 250 meg or something like that. It was
ridiculously small.
Was the previous kind of limit.
Yeah.
You just couldn't do it. So we've had people on our customer desk, in our customer portal going, can't upload this, can't do it. And then we've had to kind of make a bit of a fudge round it. But the reality is that the bigger limit is coming, which...
I think that's probably, obviously we were talking about it from the customer service side, but I think that's probably the flip side of that, because it's changing the way that it's storing the files in CRM. So it means that it can store bigger files.
Yes, I suppose so.
Because when people used to attach files in the portal, it still created the note and created the attachment on the note.
Yeah.
So
I think from that point of view, it's a welcome step forward, because if you're using a portal of any kind, the ability to attach files and share files is definitely more common than perhaps you first think.
Yeah.
It certainly helps our support desk massively.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay.
And a couple of other features with that I heard someone talk about is it's not just a file uploader. You can now drag and drop, and that will put your files on there. And there is going to be malware scanning, apparently.
Okay, so another layer of kind of I guess security and prevention coming into play, which I think, to be fair, Power Pages has tried to put you can do other kind of security checks on it now. Yeah. So you can click a button, it does a security check for you on how you think you've built it, etc. So I think, again, you put there going to other CMS tools that are out there, it's probably starting to grow up a little bit as well, I guess, and become a little bit more mature. So I think that's definitely it's a welcome addition, put it that way. It's not going to change the experience that our customers use. It's not going to change the experience that whatever you create. It's just a case of it's an additional feature that's kind of a needed feature.
Yeah.
Be interesting to see if that means then, because at the moment obviously they restrict the file types you can upload, don't they?
Yes.
So it'd be interesting to see if when that malware comes in, if they lift that restriction on file types, because like obviously we work in IT, so occasionally we get people want to send us JavaScript files and things like that, but obviously they can't do that at the moment because it's a potential risk.
Yes.
So be interesting.
It would be,
where do we want to go next?
I'm trying to think of some of the other things that I've got written down that I thought were interesting.
I'll go with one that's it's random, but it's a cross-platform. So they are changing the way the charts work.
Okay.
Modernising charts. So we were having the conversation earlier, weren't we, where it's something that we never thought they'd touch. Never in a million years. It's been the same way for 15 years?
Yep.
The charts have. And we were like, no, they'll just move everything over to Power BI, never touch the chart and anything again. They're modernising charts. So, yeah.
Obviously, the only previous thing they ever did with charts was they made them interactive.
Yeah.
Which is basically they allowed you to have a filter on the pane at the top that you could slice by a category or a date or something, right, that you put there on that was related to the data that you were putting the chart together for.
Yeah. So there's very little detail about what modernising the charts means at the moment. We'll all be surprised to hear. But something to look at because, well, it hasn't changed for 15 years, so...
Yeah, I was going to say, I remember all the time, people in the Nav days and the Vision days... early BC, obviously it started to change. I always used to sit there and go, CRM, significantly better reporting and chart functionality. The dashboards are brilliant compared to what you used to be able to get in Nav. And then you went, It's like the CRM dashboard start going into the tumbleweeds a little bit, if I'm honest, because the world of Power BI is kind of what everybody tends to use. So it will see what I think a little bit more flexibility on some of the visualization, a little bit more structure and in my opinion, for hopefully what we see, and obviously this is not confirmed what we're going to see, it's more about my want, is also a little bit more flexibility on what those dashboards actually look like opposed to your 4 panes or your 6 panes or etc. and go, that's a bit early 2000s, 1990s, if I'm being brutally honest.
Yeah.
So they've already allowed us to be a bit more recently on the forms and kind of the form structures themselves with like the section and the grids. You've got a bit more flexibility on how wide and stuff those are now. So hopefully they're going to bring an element of that also back into from a charting and a dashboarding point of view. Would
be nice. The other thing as well, that again it's generally across the board, but it was quite exciting, is the pane that pops out on the right hand side. So I'm sure you've all done it. You've opened CRM, Copilot. Yeah, the Copilot pane pops out. Yep, right in your face. So users are now going to be able to make that smaller.
So we were having a conversation about this the other day, or wasn't our support team going, can we just get rid of it and just not have it open or something like that? Was that it? That was our team chat, and I was just like, well, that kind of defeats the object, doesn't it, a little bit, of kind of the world of Copilot in CRM these days. But I do think being able to minimise it or shorten it and stuff like that, opposed to it being a set size every single time, especially when you've got lots of customers, lots of different resolutions on their screens as well. Yeah,
it's worth pointing out as well that pane doesn't just contain Copilot. So if you're in the customer service workspace, it's also your knowledge-based search and things like that. So you're not just being able to make it smaller, you can also make it bigger. So if you are doing the knowledge-based search and things, and you want a bit more screen real estate for that, then you've got that there. Obviously, it also contains the Teams chats.
Yes.
So again, if you want to make it a bit bigger so you can read the Teams chats, you can. Or if you want to make it smaller so Copilot doesn't keep jumping in your face, you can do that too.
Yeah, okay. That is a useful one. John?
I'm not really sure if this is a phase 2 because it's been around for a while.
Yeah.
But suggestions.
Okay.
I was going to say, by Kelly's laugh, you've seen them.
Yeah.
We both experienced the pain of suggestions and what they offer. It is, again, another one of those features. I think it's something that's going to be a work in progress.
Yeah, maybe explain.
Yeah. So essentially what it will do, it will look at what you've got from previous records, and as you've got things like a drop down or a selection, it will attempt to suggest what it thinks it's going to be. You can accept it. It is quite confusing because it's almost as if it puts the value in there in a slightly different shade of blue. And so all of a sudden it looks like it's actually in there, and you think that's not what I wanted and I didn't put that in there. But there's also things that you can have the suggestions automatically fill your field in, which I think is dangerous. I think it's going to be. I think it could certainly be of use if you're doing the same sort of thing again and again and again. There's a pattern that it's going to develop. So I don't think it's as. But you tend to find that a lot of the people that we've experienced it with, they do stuff that's very bespoke, and it's not really the sort of thing that will work. And you can sort of turn it off, but it's turning it off over the system as a whole rather than I want to include this field, but that one is no good. It's either off or it's on.
I saw this on one customer a little while ago, and they've got a customer's record, and the AI suggestions from Copilot suggested a target budget of £10,000 for them. How? I've no idea, because their previous financial history was nothing like that number. So I have no idea where Copilot got that from. So I have seen us turn it off a few times for customers system-wide at the moment. If I'm honest, that's the biggest meh right now on Copilot for me, is the Copilot suggestions, because some of the stuff is just fundamentally wrong.
It was suggesting to one person, they raised the case, remember, and in the date field it was putting Nan. Nan, so I can at least spell with the date.
Yeah, it's like, I'll give you a suggestion, but I'm not even respecting what type of field it is either. Yeah. So, look, I'm sure it will get better. It's also a case of where it picks its suggestion up from, because is it just... it's one of those where I think, going back to the concept of Copilot, you've got to use it for it to get better.
Yeah.
It's obviously machine learning, and the principle is, if you don't use it, it'll never improve. That's for Microsoft's benefit. So Microsoft want you to use it. They know it's not perfect, and they then want to learn from it in their background. But if you don't use it, then it'll never improve. But you're also sitting there going, I'm not having it put stuff into my system.
No.
That is fundamental. We always talk about accuracy of data, quality of data, CRM being accurate, and people filling it in, and kind of the adoption and making sure that it is right. You don't want a salesperson or customer service or a manager going, what's that figure? John, you put that budget number in there. I did not put that budget number in there. Oh, Copilot put that budget number in there.
Yeah, I think the thing is that obviously we, as CRM consultants, we live in a world where data is king. And obviously we don't want empty fields on records. You know, the fields are there for a reason, but the only thing worse than an empty field is an incorrect field.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels It feels like Copilot suggestions is getting a bit twitchy, going, oh, it's not got data. Yeah. I need to put data in there.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, leave it be. It's okay. It's not okay, but
yeah.
It's okay for Copilot to leave it empty, please. So, but anyway, that was suggestions. Controversial, but yes. So, yeah, it's a relatively new feature. Once specific to Wave 2, but it's starting to push itself out just in the background across all customer systems.
Yeah. I will mention it again, though, I don't know if it's Wave 2, but obviously we've rolled it out internally now for us, and have been having a periodic little check on it. And the Copilot summaries that we're getting in our internal system now are getting better.
On account or case
cases,
or whatever.
Yeah, they are getting better. I don't know if that's because people are actually putting more information in because they're trying to get better summaries out, or if it's just learning, but they are getting more detailed.
Yeah, I've seen some of the account summaries getting a little bit better as well from that perspective. So again, it's one of those, you put more in it, you get a little bit more back out of it. I've seen on the sales side, the new Copilot, it says sales, but it's generic, is we're going to get more of an account summary moving forward as well that looks at all the interactions of what's been going on. So just goes back to that point, you need to use it to see the benefit of what it can do.
Yeah. It is actually quite good, because there was a case that I had to pick up the other day, and the customer basically written an essay. Obviously, I did read it, but then when you look at the summary, you think, yeah, that pretty summed
accurate.
up what it was.
Well, I think the only other bit for me on Copilot before we talk about anything Power Apps or Power Automate, that's generically around sales, is obviously the Copilot for sales functionality that is starting to come out, and obviously the whole have a Teams meeting, you can recap your notes, and then you can put your actions into CRM, and obviously the truly kind of integration is suggesting what you should be doing next and things like that. So, and then also within Teams as well, being able to see the opportunity of what you're working on, opposed to having CRM open in a different screen, you've got a little pane that will show you basics of what that opportunity record was if that meeting was related to that opportunity. So again, I think that's going to be very cool, in my opinion, when that comes out. Because lots of people keep going, Teams meeting, right, I'll now go and update this. Right, Teams meeting. Whereas I'm kind of it's the Microsoft ecosystem at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It's been very integrated to one another, I guess, is the best way of putting it. Okay, anything Power Apps or Power Automate related?
So in Power Automate, again, I'm not really sure if it's Wave 2, but we've now got the automation center that we can, I think it's actually Wave 1, they were talking about it, but it's now actually released.
It was between
Yeah.
the two ultimately, but it's a newish feature that's worth
You've now
mentioning.
got the analytics of your Power Automate flows and things. And that information is stored in Dataverse tables, but what they're actually going to do is give us the ability to determine what we want to store in Dataverse tables, because at the moment it's like an everything thing. Yeah, which obviously takes up quite a lot of space when you've got a lot of flows running. You know, I can think of some customers where that's probably the biggest table already.
We won't name names.
No. But so what they're going to do is, part of Wave 2, they're going to give us the ability to narrow down the criteria for those tables. So we can say, you know, if it's successful, just get rid, we don't want to know, you know, that kind of thing.
And also I think understand the priority of certain flows, like certain customers that have got a lot of flows in their system. What are the high priority ones?
Yeah.
What are the medium priority ones? What are the business critical ones? Because there's some automations that, don't get me wrong, it's a problem if it doesn't work, but there's some automation going, if it doesn't work,
Then everything falls over.
The business starts to fall a little bit until it's resolved, etc., like you would expect in any business system. So I think being able to slice and dice that better, opposed to having to go into the flow and look through the history and try to find which one, and then open it up and then see where the error was and stuff like that. Being able to see a little bit more kind of at summary level, and then being able to dig into it from there onwards, I think it's always been a monitoring and reporting on flows have always been more difficult.
Yeah. The other aspect of that is as well is that at the moment, it's, unless you've got very, very, you know, system savvy customers using the flows, it's very difficult for the customers to go and troubleshoot when those errors occur.
Yeah.
You know, so unless it's very specific, you know, and you've trained them to do it, it's quite difficult for them to be like, oh, I don't know what's gone wrong. Whereas now they can see at a glance, you know, even if it's just to say, oh, I've had these failures, can you just check them out for me?
Yeah. I think it's easier for kind of system admin, system managers, super users to manage from that perspective now in a central way, and then be able to either diagnose and hopefully perhaps some will fix themselves, or be able to pass it through to us to help diagnose and resolve from that perspective. But before it was definitely more difficult to try and review.
Yeah.
And that's always been a challenge of Power Automate. Great technology of what it can do, but it's kind of reporting and alerting and that kind of principle has always let it down a little bit. And I think Microsoft have realised that, especially with now probably the volume of its use. It's got no choice but to have it either. Okay, anything else? John, I saw a note that you put around rather than steps, AI requests.
The AI flows.
Yeah.
So this was something we saw in Brussels, where instead of, you know, we're very used to cloud flows, which is what we've got. Desktop flows, again, useful, but that's more sort of ones you want to do for yourself. You've now got the option of an AI flow, which is sort of almost like a natural language written step. And it was that one that we had, please look at such and such file and determine what, and it goes through these particular steps to then determine an outcome. It's going to be interesting to see what it's like when we actually get our hands on it, to see a use that it could be. It's going to need to be something fairly advanced, I think, for us to utilise it, but it's certainly, it's pushing Copilot further into what we're doing with Power Automate.
I think it's one of those where the AI, as opposed to you building lots of the rules and going, at this step, try and go through this and then do this and then go through that and then do this. Natural language says, this is what I'm looking at. You going to give me the response that actually I want, opposed to me building all the conditions and steps out that I need to go through. So the idea is that in theory it's less work to build the flow out and all the steps and all the branches, But that doesn't mean that you're just going to be able to just write it and it's just everything. I think there's still going to be an area of manipulation depending on what it is that you want to achieve, I think is the reality.
It's also going to be very dependent on the accuracy of what it's referring to. So if you think about that example, which was it was a cinema booking system, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was looking at a policy document.
Like a 70-page policy document, and it was then determining if that policy document, let's say, is badly written and you've got two things that conflict each other, with contradicting information. It's going to be interesting how it's going to cope with that.
Yeah.
But it's certainly going to save time, because previously you'd have to go through each of those rules and you'd have to put your steps in, go down this route. If you get something wrong, you've got to rejig your flow. If you want to change something, you're going back to the flow and updating it, whereas this, you're just updating a document. Yeah. But it comes back to everything with this. It's got to be the accuracy of your data. If your data's good, what you get out of it is good. Yeah. And opposite.
Okay, so wrapping up, because I'm conscious that we've probably been going nearly 45 minutes. And I said we'll try half an hour, but that's failed. Anything Power Apps orientated that I want to just mention that's... I know there's a couple of things that come out a bit more technical, but anything high level that we want to mention around Power Apps specifically, or Canvas apps?
So we've got, again, loads of Copilot features into Canvas apps again. You can get Copilot to write formulas for you. You can get Copilot to do all sorts of stuff, apparently. Never seen it actually work in a Canvas app. Yeah. But loads and loads of features around that. And then...
I've seen one about resize side panes.
We've covered that already with a model-driven app. That was what I was talking about.
Yeah, okay. And then I saw another one that was like, we've talked about the chat dialogues as well.
Yeah.
Chart dialogues even.
Chart dialogues, yeah. So they're just like generic updates to model-driven apps as well. So,
but I think Canvas apps itself, I think some of the updates are more kind of technical back out. I don't think it's a, hey, customer base, this is the fundamental change. I think the reality is it's evolutional. Yeah. Evolution, improvements to the tool than it is then there's a major change that's impacting the customers.
The thing is that the changes to Canvas apps are things that get us excited as builders because they make our life easier.
Yeah.
But they're not anything that the customer's ever going to really notice unless they also build Canvas apps.
No, true. Okay. Anyone got a final one before we wrap up? No?
I think I've covered everything on my list.
Yeah, okay. I think the summary of Wave 2 is very much like the summary of Wave 1, and it's Copilot.
And I think also I'm going to summarise the Wave 2 and we're up and Copilot. Obviously, we've had the announcement a little while ago, and now it's confirmed that I don't want to end on but of course, from the 1st of October, not only do we start to get all these new features and all new Copilot functionality within CRM apps, etc., and more general updated features, we also do have a price change. And that it's not just CRM. Business Central isn't affected as it stands today. I'm not part of this price change. But things like Sales Enterprise, Customer Service Enterprise, Field Service, etc., are all seeing some increases to its monthly user-based pricing and device-based pricing. And a lot of it is down, Microsoft's reason is down to product innovation, which a lot then comes down to Copilot. And what I would say is, as a CRM type user, Power Platform type user, you do actually get quite a lot of Copilot functionality in our toolkit. Compared to where Business Central is getting better, it is, and there's more coming, but it's kind of everywhere within the CRM and Power Platform world. So that is a lot of Microsoft's justification for their increase come from October. But of course, ask your customer engagement managers for the details, but it'll only kick in at your anniversary, is when the price will adjust. So yeah, I didn't want to end on a negative note, but as we've covered Copilot so much, and it is taking effect from October, it was also worth mentioning as well. So feel free to reach out if you've got any questions. Aside from that, thanks Kelly, thanks John.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. That's the end of another CRM and Power Platform podcast for Tecman Talks Dynamics. We'll see you again soon.